Hello and welcome to Italian Serie A Matchday 7. After the midweek games, Danny, we saw the first defeat from Inter Milan. The Black Beast is Sassuolo for Inter Milan.
No team in Italy is undefeated because Inter fell against Sassuolo for the 9 times in the last 21 games. Of course, they are the Black Horse, so they beat Juventus, they beat Inter, and someone in Italy still called them Scansuolo, like they move away from the big teams. No, they are the big teams, big beast. Very difficult team to bet on Sassuolo as well. Then we saw Milan winning a Cagliari with their sort of B team, so they got maybe a deeper squad than many people thought. Juventus bouncing back on the old way, 1-0 of course, and then one Roman side going up, Lazio, the other one going down, trashed by Genoa 4-1, so there's a lot to talk about.
Horrible, Mourinho and his Roma, of course. Well, a lot to talk about, so let's not waste any time. Leave us your comments as always and press the like and subscribe. And now let's go on with the show. And also remember that we have a special offer with 1xBet thanks to Oddspedia and thanks to you. So use our promo code, use our link here in the description, and you can have up to 130% in your first bonus, in your welcome offer. Well, Danny, good games on Saturday because we have Champions League the following week, and the first game in the south of Italy is Lecce Napoli. A lot to talk about Napoli because all the controversial situation around Osimhen. You will tell me all the scandal, but in the middle of this storm, they were able to thrash the Udinese, as you predicted, with Kvaratskhelia finally scoring, and this is good news. But wow, this is a tough one for Napoli because Lecce, they are very strong at Via del Mare. They won all 3 games.
A very poor TikTok video, but that's TikTok for you. Maybe it's not for us. We are not even meant to understand it. It didn't go down very well with Osimhen and his agent, who were threatening legal action. But then yesterday, Napoli put out a statement. They say, sorry, we didn't mean to offend you. But you know, Victor, this is just TikTok. You should get on with it. I mean, it all sounds very, very absurd. I didn't like the video on TikTok, but if Napoli players needed a little bit of fire in their belly and a kick on the backside and the situation rattled them a bit, well, give the social media manager a pay rise because he worked 4-1 against Udinese. They were really, really good. I mean, jokes apart, Napoli played a good game. They were in good physical condition. Osimhen scored, of course, didn't want to take a penalty that was left to Zielinski, but then Kvaratskhelia, first goal in 7 months, he hit the post twice, gave an assist to Simeone. They had a lot of chances, converted them. Yes, it was good to see. But, you know, overall, Napoli's numbers this season had not been as great as last season. Last season, they were really good. But if you look at the number of forward passes, attacks, re-aggression, pressings, they're all down. So they seem to have lost a little bit that style of play because tactically, they're very similar, 4-3-3. So maybe they've lost a little bit confidence in themselves. They don't have a lot of confidence, perhaps, in the manager. But I think they're not completely gone. I mean, they were so good last season, and I believe things will improve with them. And now they face Lecce, which, by the way, they got in the same points in the table, 11. So it's a very good clash for the Champions League spot because the Salernitana have been really, really good so far. 3 wins out of 3 at home. 0 shots on target, though, against Juventus. They complained against the referee. Against Juventus, that's a surprise. You know, nobody ever complains against you in Italy. But again, that's a joke. Then people start commenting. Juventus were worthy winner against them 1-0, and I think you know, they probably gonna give Napoli something to think about. They are a very direct side with pace, with youthfulness. So I think if Napoli wins this one, it's more by 1 goal margin. It's a high scoring game. It's an over 2.5 goals if Milan wins it. By the way, they only won 1-0 4 times last year away from home, only twice away from home against Roma and Juventus. Rudy Garcia is not really a 1-0 manager, only won 4 times when he was in charge at Lyon. If you fancy Napoli to win, you can go Napoli win and over 1.5 goals, for example. I'm going to go for a simple one here. Napoli win in the first game played on Saturday. Pays really well, 180.
I'm surprised that you are so optimistic with Napoli. They have a tough week ahead of them. First Via del Mare and then Real Madrid.
Well, when we do the video Monday with Alvaro, I'll be slightly less optimistic about the chances against Real Madrid. But for this one, I think Napoli should consider favorite. They are favorite. The odds are really good. They cannot be as bad as we've seen so far.
So, Danny, you blame a little bit more Osimhen than the social media manager?
No, I think that the situation between Osimhen and Napoli is very difficult because of the contract renewal that is going on all the entire summer. And there's been some frictions between him and Rudy Garcia. The environment is not perfect. But on the other hand, if you look at Napoli TikTok, it's full of this nonsense, stupid, a little bit left TikTok. Field videos. Exactly. It's TikTok. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think they really care about TikTok. Probably in the situation that they were, having Osimhen miss the penalty against Bologna, having Napoli not won the game, maybe they could have avoided doing that. He's not really funny about it, but I don't think it's about TikTok. It's about something else.
Well, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. Let's focus on the football. This is the important thing. On Saturday, Milan-Lazio, a clash from two teams in the Champions League. Milan now toe-to-toe with Inter after the victory you mentioned with Plan B in Cagliari. Okafor scored his first goal for Milan, and Lazio, Danny, going up, as you said, against Torino. They were a bit lucky. Torino had some chances, but it's important, their second victory of the season.
This is a good game, probably the game of the round. Milan, good reaction after the derby defeat, 0-0 against Newcastle, beat Verona, and then a good win at Cagliari without Magnan, Calabria, Leao, Krunic, Giroud. So a very good response from the fringe players. Okafor scored, but especially Adli playing instead of Krunic in the role of playmaker. First ever start for the young Frenchman, and he did well, and he received a lot of prizes for the way he managed the game. Is he going to start against Lazio again? Probably. And obviously Pioli might find that he's got a deeper squad compared to last season, and that could be the difference between challenging for the Scudetto and doing poorly as they did last season, because in reality they finished 5th if Juventus had not been knocked down 10 points. But, you know, the good news for Milan is that since Tomori came back, they only conceded 1 goal in 3 games. Magnan should be back for this one as well. Milan playing Borussia Dortmund on Wednesday, but they need to focus on the league, of course. Unbeaten at home so far, always scored in Serie A. They got a good record against Lazio. They won 2-0 at home last season. That was the game before the first derby of the Champions League where Leao picked up that injury. Lazio, on the other hand, good news, first clean sheet of the season in 7 games against Torino. They looked more solid. Sarri made some changes, leaving out Kamada and Hisai, and I think the team benefit from that. It was a very level game against Torino. Lazio, in the end, they got more resources, you know, as they show against Atletico Madrid. Even when things don't go their way, they never give up. Goal from Vecino, one of Sarri's men. He scored in all the last 11 Serie A seasons. So one to look for going forward. I think Vecino is pop up with more goals, and more importantly, first goal for Zaccagni after 14 games, first assist for Felipe Anderson. Continues, you know, the two wingers are so important. I don't think Lazio are going to be trashed here. Might be a draw. I like a lot the Asian handicap plus 0.75 for the visitors, 189. What does it mean? If Lazio loses by only 1 goal margin, you only lose half a stake. Any other results in favor of Lazio, you win. If Lazio loses by 2 goals margin, of course, you lose the full stake.
Perfectly explained, Danny. And on Saturday, the other team involved in the Champions League, Inter, traveling to Salerno, to the south of Italy. Inter, the first defeat of the season. You mentioned in the previous video that they looked tired against Empoli. Well, they played only 3 days after against Sassuolo, and they lost for Salernitana, 3 points, no victories, losing against Empoli, looking bad.
If you look statistically, this is a massive mismatch, because if you look at the expected points table, so based on expected goals for and against, it's top against bottom. Well, Inter are top, Salernitana are out of the bottom three only on goal difference because Udinese and Empoli have got a worse goal difference. But yes, Salernitana start of the season has been appalling, but Inter in the second half against Sassuolo, they looked tired, they looked not focused. After taking the lead with Denzel Dumfries, I think they thought they were going to win this game by default because of better technical ability, better physicality. And in the first half, Inter played well. There were some good movements, some good passes. They lacked a little bit of cutting edge. But yeah, a bit concerning that they, in the second half, they didn't respond after Sassuolo equalizer. Inzaghi has been criticized for playing always the same man, the likes of Barella, Bastoni, Lautaro. They would need a rest, but all in all, the game against Sassuolo, if you look at the fixtures of Inter, probably was the most difficult in Serie A, considering Empoli and Salernitana away. So probably was right to have the best formation at the San Siro. Last season, Inter drew against Salernitana, the return game. It finished 1-1. And by the way, that was the last time Inter drew a game in the league. So no draws in 15 and only one draw in the last 19, if you consider the cup competition. So since then, Inter really kicked on. But now, if they want to continue to challenge for the title, they need to make sure that they win the ugly games away. And this could be an ugly one. All away games for Inter so far this season have been under 2.5 goals. They deserve to lose against Real Sociedad, didn't lose, lost against Sassuolo. So really can't have too many complaints. Sommer made a mistake for the 1-1 draw Sassuolo momentaneously, but then in the end Sassuolo had more shots on target than Inter, so a deserved defeat. Salernitana a bit desperate, and I think whether Paulo Sousa might be the next manager to be sacked is either him or Sottil from Udinese. The odds are very, very similar. No clean sheets for Salernitana in 6 games. Only one in the last 12, if you look back at last season. They got absolutely battered by Empoli. Empoli was in crisis, haven't never scored a goal. They scored, won 1-0, thanks to Baldanzi. Again, the hero was Ochoa, made 4 or 5 saves. Empoli expected goals in the end was 2.30. Boulaye Dia, last year goal scorer, came on the second half. He looked a little bit desperate. Candreva was substituted. I don't know. It just seems very desperate for Salernitana, who, let's not forget, last season drew 15 games. So things can go badly very quickly for them. And they were the 3rd worst defense in Serie A. But because it's so desperate and because really it's almost a last chance for Paulo Sousa, I think they'll score. I got a feeling Salernitana are going to score in this game, and Inter are going to score. Both to score, 195.
Salernitana only scored 4 goals. Inter only conceded 3. But Danny is going for both teams to score. It looks like Inter is slowing down after that victory in the derby. Struggling in the last games. Let's see if they bounce back in Salerno. Let's move on to the games we have on Sunday. 4 games. Bologna Empoli is our first stop in the Dallara, with a draw for Bologna in the last game against Monza. This no news, Danny. 3 consecutive goalless draws for Bologna, whereas Empoli, we had one comment in our previous video, Danny. Empoli is gonna win this one. Mark my words. I'm sure they are gonna win this one.
They won.
First victory, 1 goal, 1 victory.
3 points, 1 goal, 1 victory. Revitalized maybe, but the new old manager, Andrea Azzoli, has been there before. But they're playing with more freedom. And, Empoli is a young side. They got the likes of Baldanzi, Fazzini, Spendi, Cancellieri, all under 21. They're a bit naive, obviously, but they are energetic, and it is a side that if they get a bit of confidence in themselves, I think they will be all right. The problem are at the back. We're obviously missing somebody like Vicario, who's not playing for Spurs. You will see the difference because Vicario was really, really important. And they also had to deal with a couple of injuries, Berejinski and Pezzella. But they had a lot of chances against Salernitana. Should have scored at least 2 goals. Now, the problem is the calendar for Empoli has been difficult. But now it gets slightly easier. Go Bologna, they go Udinese home on Friday. They can come at the break well out of the relegation zone. And Bologna, same as Salernitana, same as Monza. These are the masters of draw. 12 draws in 2023 for Bologna, Monza, only 1 less than Salernitana. It is a team that plays well, but does lack cutting edge. 3 games with no goals. Had few more chances against Monza, had a goal disallowed. But yes, it is the issue with goal scorers, really. Because, I mean, if you look at last season, Bologna, perhaps in terms of goal scoring numbers, overachieved. Orsolini scored 10, best scoring season for him. Ferguson, who's not a striker, scored 7. Posh, a defender, scored 6. But they haven't replaced Arnautovic, who scored 10 goals. Now, Joshua Zirkzee is a good player, but does he have those scoring numbers? But nonetheless, the work that Thiago Motta has done so far is good. He started his career with Bologna exactly a year ago when he were in Matchday 7 and collected 55 points so far. So very, very good tally for him. Let's see what's happened with this one. Maybe it's another draw, the Masters of Draw. Yeah. I'm going to go first half. This is a bet builder. So it's a first half X2. So Empoli not to lose the first half and under 3.5 goals in total. That pays 2.34.
Okay, Danny, let's move on to the next game. You mentioned Udinese and the manager to be sacked, looking very poor. Also, only 3 points for them. They lost to Napoli without putting a fight. Only 2 goals scored, so everything is very negative for Genoa. Completely the opposite, 4-1 against Roma. Retegui is still scoring. Another player that I think you like, Junior Messias, in the score sheet. Second victory of the season for Genoa.
They're very creative and they are very direct. They got Gudmundsson, who scored a great goal, and I think is the top player in Serie A for dribbling, completing. And then Retegui as well, the team plays for him. The Argentine and Italian scored 3 in 6 games. Might not be the most spectacular player, but he gets the job done. And, you know, these are good stats, 3 in 6 games. Same as Diego Milito when he used to play for Genoa, El Principale. But they are defensively sound as well. They found a good balance in midfield with Badelli and Strootman. And they only conceded 9 goals in the first 6 games, which is a record for them since 2016. Away from home, all the 3 away games away from home finished 1-0. They only won 1. But they show against Roma that they got a good attacking pedigree and good numbers. I mean, this is the team that also scored 2 against Napoli and 1 against Lazio. So against the top teams, they are performing. And I think things look really good for Gilardino's side. Opposite for Udinese, they are in real crisis. Only 2 goals scored, both by Samardzic, who, by the way, was on the bench against Napoli. I mean, Sotil, while leaving on the bench your best player, it's just, I don't understand it. They were easily beaten by Napoli, and if it wasn't for the goalkeeper and the woodwork, they would have lost by 5 or 6. So really heavy stuff for them. No goals at home so far, although in the last game against Fiorentina, they missed a couple of chances, very, very good chances. Winless in 10 games, if you look back at last season. Sotil definitely under pressure. Last season, they seemed very fit. This summer, they've lost quality in the likes of Dudoge, in the likes of Beccao, Beto, etc. I don't think they're going to come out of this crisis very easily, but a draw might be good, might be on the card, and probably a decent amount of goals. I'm going to go for X2 and over 1.5 goals. So Genoa not to lose the game, but in a high-scoring game, 2 goals or more, you win with an X2, 240.
Well, if Retegui is following the steps of Diego Milito, Danny, perhaps he ends up giving Inter a Champions League.
Well, it was linked to Inter, to be fair. I don't think it would have been a bad shout. Maybe it's too much similar to Lautaro in that regards. Someone who plays always on the shoulder of the defender. I'm not sure if he can hold the ball that well. He's more of a box. He's a box striker, but he's a finisher. But I mean, I do like him. Look, for the Italian national team, he's the most informed player, so I hope he gets called by Mancini. He gets called by Spalletti. And I hope he'll start in the games against Malta and England.
Well, next game, also a good one on Sunday, Atalanta, Juve, because Atalanta, they are getting the results, back-to-back victories. Yes. They beat Verona with Miners scoring the winner, and this is a tough one to call. Danny, let's see your approach. On this one, we can see the odds are very high for both ends because Juve, in an ugly way, sometimes in the Juve style, but they got the 3 points and they are only 2 points away from Inter.
And for all their misery, Juventus still have had the best start of a Serie A campaign since 2019-2020 when, remember, they won the Scudetto under Maurizio Sarri. It was the pandemic season, but they were the best team in Italy. So not everything looks gloom in the Juventus camp. Obviously, as soon as Inter were defeated 2-1 by Sassuolo, everyone in Italy said, well, you see, Juventus defeat was not that bad. You know, they lost against a good side. Sassuolo is strong. Juventus were appalling against Sassuolo because they had the first shots on target on the 77th minute. But it's true that Sassuolo, it is used to this kind of games. And Juventus, as I expected, they reverted back to the mean, to the usuals, being solid, being compact, getting a goal from a set piece, which I did against Milik, first goal of the season, but didn't concede a single shot on target to Lecce, who were in form. And now this is a very tricky one to approach because Atalanta, surprisingly, kept another clean sheet. That's the 5th clean sheet in the last 7 games in all season so far. 3 home games for the Orobici, no goals conceded. And you left wonder, had they become so solid at home? Remember last season, they started very well. They only conceded 3 goals in the first 8 Serie A games. They were winning a lot of games 1-0, but then they ended up with the 6th worst defeat, the 6th worst the home defense in Serie A. They conceded 26 goals at home. So at the end, the things, reverted to how they used to be. I think what you have to admire from Atalanta is that despite a lot of injuries to Scamacca, to Touré, they showed a lot of flexibility in their style of play. They got a good partnership up front with Lookman and De Ketelaere, and they're flexible. They're changing the interpreters, but the results keep coming. They've scored with 8 different players. So all the attacking players, all the attacking midfielders have found the net. Look, Juventus are unbeaten in the last 3 games in Bergamo. Maybe there is also a question with the tiredness, because Atalanta have played on Wednesday, so one day after Juventus, and Atalanta played in Europe with Rako Cestosova a week ago. So that's the 5th game in 14 days for Atalanta, whereas Juventus have rested. Now, it didn't count when they played against Sassuolo, the rest, but maybe further down the line, playing against teams that have played in Europe, this could be a factor. It is a difficult one to call, probably the most difficult one of the weekend. You have to go with a cautious approach. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap 0 in the first half for Juve, which pays 190. Now, if Juve wins the first half, you win. If they draw, you get your money back. If Atalanta wins the first half, you lose your stake.
Very tough, I think, this one, to be honest, to bet on this one. It's
difficult. And just a reminder for everyone watching or watching for the first time, I try to give the best odds, so high odds, for every single game. But it doesn't mean that you have to put a bet on every single game. Mine are just indication. And sometimes the approach is cautious because they are difficult. From my analysis, I try to explain when I'm a little bit more certain than in some games and when I'm going to be cautious. And also, after the midweek games, it's always difficult to make picks. There is less time to analyze. There is less time for me, for everyone to watch a game's highlights. So you need to take all this advice with a bit of caution, I think.
Well, Danny, in the next game, I have a bet in mind. Actually, I'm talking about Roma Frosinone. This is a derby in the region of Lazio, and it's about goals. Both teams to score. Should be a good bet on this one, or perhaps goals, because Roma so poor, so leaky, and this is news, no? From a team of Mourinho, conceded 4 against Genoa, even if Dybala or Lukaku were on the pitch. Only 1 victory this season against Empoli, and be careful with the little brother Frosinone with 9 points, drawing against Fiorentina. They've scored in 5 out of the 6 games.
And Roma issue is the defense. 11 goals conceded, 3rd worst defense in Serie A. 12 goals if you consider that game in the Cup against Sheriff. Only 1 clean sheet so far against Empoli. Yes, they're not looking great, and they look lack of character, very disjointed against Genoa, not helped by the absentees. Also, Llorente in defense has been injured, picked up an injury, as well as Smalling. But yeah, really, they didn't seem to have a game plan. In the end, they ended the game with Dybala, Lukaku, Azmoun, Belotti, everyone on the pitch. Looked a mess, and Genoa were very much more composed. It's a bad start to the season, the worst start of the season since 2010, 2011. Last year, though, they conceded 4 goals against Udinese and Sassuolo, so which tells you Roma's defense, the numbers are good, but they are susceptible to bad games. So maybe they should have strengthened the defense this season a little bit more, apart from signing Ndika. And this is a concern. But Mourinho came out fighting, said, before me, this team never played 2 European finals before. So, obviously, typical Mourinho. But this is going to be a tough one for Roma, because if anything, Frosinone are going to go there with no fear. They drew against Fiorentina. Fiorentina had a lot of chances, but Frosinone came back. Again, they recovered points from a losing position. They've already recovered 4 points from a losing position. They beat Atalanta, gave Napoli a good game in Matchday 1 when the team was still incomplete, drew against Fiorentina, won against Sassuolo. Careful with Frosinone, because they are very young. They are perhaps a little bit naive, but they do score 9 goals in 6 games. They score more than Lazio and Torino. Yes, they do concede a lot of shots. Often their keeper is the man of the match, but they can keep the ball well. If you look at the possession stats, they are decent. I think this is difficult for Roma to do another Murignata, another win 2-0. I'm going to go for over 1 goal in the first half. 181. If there's only 1 goal in the first half, you get your money back.
Well, I also think there will be goals in the Olimpico. The Roma really need to win this game. Remember, we have to look really at the bottom of the table to see Roma only 5 points. They are 16th in the standings. So poor. And on Monday, Danny, strangely, we have 3 games. First one, Sassuolo Monza. This should be a good one because Sassuolo is the team that we like, Danny, with the Cervi. I'm talking about scoring goals, surprising the big teams in Serie A. It's kind of a Robin Hood, no? They lose against the small teams and they win the strong ones. Who would have thought, no? Back-to-back victories against Inter and Juventus. Now they have to play Monza, 3 consecutive draws for Monza.
And for Sassuolo, it's not the first time it happened. As I mentioned, 9 times they beat Inter in 21 games. Last season, they beat Milan, they beat Roma, they beat Juve. They're no stranger to these heroics. And probably there is no other team in Serie A at the moment that can have such important records against top sides. They're a bit crazy, though. They do have a strategy, because they know where to attack. They know where to exploit teams. And they attack in numbers, but they always leave you chances. They always leave you opportunities to score. Against Inter, they suffer in the first half, especially in the areas where Vigna and Viti were playing. But then they looked very fresh. They ended up with more shots on target than Inter, and they got a player in Berardi that is evergreen, and since he returned, he changed completely Sassuolo. Now, let me break down the numbers of Berardi. 8 goals against Inter in 16 games. He played at San Siro over 20 times, and he had 17 between goals and assists. 141 goals in his career, including the national team. Since he came back, Sassuolo have scored, because the first 2 games he didn't play because he was linked to a move to Juventus. So since Berardi came back, Sassuolo scored 13 goals in 4 games. All these games have been over 2.5 goals, both to score. If Sassuolo wins a game, normally is an over 2.5 goals, both to score. So that's, I think, the way forward. Monza, on the other hand, they cannot score to save their life. No goals from the strikers. The only goals have been scored by Colpani and Gagliardini. They had a goal disallowed. They were unlucky, guys, Bologna, because the goal disallowed is really fractional for a part of the knee of Dani Motta that was offside. But the strikers haven't scored, and now they are 6 months without Caprari, who picked up an injury, and they are signing Papu Gomez as a free agent to help them out. It's a good signing. I think he will play a lot of minutes, but is he a goal scorer? Is he a striker? They need something more. Colombo as a scorer. Dani Motta, as I said, the goal disallowed. They are the masters of draw. Monza, 3rd consecutive draw. But by the way, that was the first 0-0 in 44 Serie A games. They don't do 0-0. Are they gonna get defeated here? I'm going to go against the logic. I think Sassuolo will revert the crazy side they are. They're not going to win this one. So I'm going to go double chance, X2, Monza. Monza are used to draw. And over 1.5 goals. As I said, they don't do 0-0. So X2 and over 1.5 goals, 2-4.
Sevilla fans, Danny, I can tell you they don't like Papu Gomez. He wasn't
very successful. But he should have stayed in. Well, he had problems with Gasperini in Bergamo. In the end, they didn't see eye for eye. But yeah, I mean, the Papu Gomez we see at Bergamo it is something else, and it didn't work.
Maybe we see the best Papu Gomez again in Italy. Well, let's see. Yeah, 2 more games, Danny. Torino, Verona, 8 points for Torino, a team that we were praising a lot in our previous video, but they lost. To Lazio, still very competitive at home, 1 victory, 2 draws for Verona. They are competing, Danny, as well, but losing 1-0 to Atalanta, 1-0 to Milan.
Yeah, no goals in the last 3 for Verona. They need to get some confidence back, and maybe some of their key players like Henry, who returned from an injury, Juric as well. They do have goal scorers, but they need to make the most of Bonazzoli, Ngonge, Duden, Foloruscio. Maybe they need to find the real position for them. Against Atalanta, they could have conceded more than a goal, had a few chances in the end. They looked a little bit toothless. 2 defeats and 1 win away from home against Empoli, keeping the goal, keeping a clean sheet. But Empoli, I remember in that game, had a few chances. So it's difficult for Verona to travel away and win, which, by the way, last season they did. They beat Torino 1-0 thanks to Juric. Torino are a good side. They are compact, organized, aggressive. They got a better squad than last season. The addition of Bellanova, Tameze, Zapata have strengthened the team. But what Torino lacks is that epic, those big wins against the top sides. Exactly what Sassuolo has. Torino don't have. Torino really struggled to beat top sides. Remember last season they beat Milan twice, also in the Coppa Italia. But normally against top teams, they draw, they lose, and they were on top against Lazio. But after Lazio took the lead, there was no reaction. It was the first time Zapata and Sanabria played together. Will we see them again? I don't know. They're going to be without Buongiorno, the defender, who was replaced well by Sazonov, 21 years old, Georgian, a good defender. Torino, as I said, is a solid team. They haven't conceded in 5 out of 6 first half so far. So maybe first half is a draw. But it could be, I think, 8 games for goals. Over 2.25 goals, 2-2. Now, pace 2, sorry. Is an Asian line, so if there are only 2 goals in the game, you lose half a stake. More than 2 goals in the game, you win 2.
Okay, I also expect goals in our last game in the beautiful city of Florence.
Yes.
In the Antonio Franchi, we have Fiorentina, Cagliari. I expect goals because at home with Fiorentina, we see goals. We saw plenty of goals against Atalanta and against Lecce.
Yes.
They were stopped by Frosinone in the middle of the week. Cagliari, Danny, very poor. They are bottom of the table, only 2 points.
And they are paying a lot, Cagliari, the individual mistakes. Again, the keeper, Radunovic, gifted a goal to Milan after the one he gifted to Bologna. So they are not, it's not a lack of trying for Cagliari. They're also a bit unlucky in some situations, but they don't seem to score and they make a lot of defensive mistakes. Only 2 goals scored so far, both by Luvumbu. They need more from Petagna, De Jola, Pavoletti. Ranieri has organized the team well. It's got good tactics and they are put well on the pitch, but it's not enough. They need more, and they need some of the key players to step up and obviously cut the silly mistakes. Otherwise, they'll end up losing most of the games. After this one, they play Roma home, so it's a bit tough. But then they go Salernitana, Frosinone, and Genoa, and that's where they need to start picking up the points. By far, Cagliari, of the 3 newly promoted side, the one that is struggling the most. This is not going to be easy. Despite Fiorentina, again, showed their limits against Frosinone. They had many chances, especially in the first half. They squandered them. They only kept 1 clean sheet in Serie A. It is a team that very hardly wins 1-0. So that's why 2 weeks ago, on last Sunday, when they won 2-0 against Udinese, is a bit of a freak result. If you look at the number of chances Udinese created, Fiorentina should not have won with the scoreline. They're going to be without Dodo, the right back, out for 6 months, and this is a big miss. And also without Biraghi, who picked up an injury, is going to miss a couple of weeks. So I think there are going to be issues in defense. They're not quite covering the fullback positions. They're still waiting, Fiorentina, for the first goal from from Zola and Beltran. Nico Gonzalez keeps scoring. Are they going to be tired a bit? This is the team, Fiorentina, that in Italy has played more games so far because they play the Conference League, but they also had to play the preliminary rounds against Rapid Vienna. So basically, they've been playing every 3 days since the beginning of August. There are going to be a lot of changes here, I think, because they are hosting Ferencváros on Thursday. Both to score. I don't think Cagliari's bad luck is going to continue. They might lose, but I think both to score, it's a good one. Both to score that pays 2.
The mighty Ferencváros, Danny, I'm sure you watched that game in summer where they lost against the Faroe Island team in the Champions League.
Yes, that is true, but I mean, they got a decent record in Europa competition. Don't disregard Hungarian football just yet. Obviously, Fiorentina favorites. Fiorentina favorites, of course, but
Soboslai, and they are doing great. Hungary,
yeah, of course.
Budapest is an amazing city as well.
Well,
Danny, tell me your safe bet.
Genoa plays away to Udinese, and I'm gonna go for an Asian handicap plus 0.75, 145.
And Yoraka?
Napoli Asian handicap minus 0.25. Udinese Genoa double chance x2. Atalanta Juventus under 3.5 goals. Sassuolo Monza both to score. Total odds 5.39.
So Danny trusts Napoli, Danny trusts Genoa in this match day. Let me know, as always, in the comments your opinions. Danny, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for watching. Just press the like. Bye bye.
Ciao ciao.